But Netanyahu was dead man walking before Gaza conflict began. He's a man who, made a gambit to take control of the Israeli judiciary so that he would not be charged with corruption charges. He's a corrupt individual, morally corrupt, and politically corrupt. So he was dead man walking before this conflict started. This conflict allowed him to extend his political life by becoming a war prime minister, but he has fumbled this horribly. The only thing he's succeeded in is staying in power. He's lost this war, and now his war cabinet is collapsed. He's making a gambit to bring in even more right-wing people to sustain this. But the bottom line is his political future is dark. It's over. So to say he's gained anything, he's basically destroyed whatever was left of his reputation. He will go down in history as, and this is ultimately where we are, the man who destroyed Israel, the man who is why there is no longer a state of Israel, because there will no longer be a state of Israel. Netanyahu has killed Israel. Israel can't continue to exist. It can't beat Hamas. It's lost the support of the world. It's losing even more support. You have a UN Security Council resolution supported by the United States against Israel. You have President Biden threatening to do things to Israel if he doesn't do this. But no matter what, the propaganda exercise, which was how Israel sold itself to the world and to itself, is finished. Israel's been exposed as a fundamentally morally corrupt state. The Zionist enterprise is one that's based upon apartheid and genocide. Two words that people were struggling to, you weren't allowed to say these words beforehand. Today, it's embraced by the world. It's an apartheid state, a genocide state. This is how Israel is defined. Its economy is in shambles. The only way the Israeli economy was going to be sustainable is if Israel normalized relations with its Arab neighbors and became an integral part of whatever economic miracle they were trying to do, whether you wanted to call it the India-Middle East Economic Corridor or some other version thereof. That's over. That's not happening. The Israelis find themselves, the Houthis have effectively blockaded the Israeli ports. They're not going to recover. Hezbollah and Hamas have shown that Israel will never live in peace, ever. That the skies of Israel can be filled with missiles at any time, and that's not part of the Israeli dream that people flock to when they, when they took Aliyah. People are starting to leave Israel, and increasingly people will flee Israel because you can't live in Israel. It's unsustainable. Israel will be compelled because of international pressure to seek a two-state solution. In order to do this, though, Israel will have to solve a number of internal problems, one of which is the West Bank settlers. Those settlements will have to go. This will lead to a major fracture, political fracture, societal fracture in Israel. More people will flee Israel. Ultimately, what will happen is that the demographics of Israel will be altered such that it becomes impossible to speak of a two-state solution because the Israeli element of the two-state solution is so minimal that it has to become a one-state solution. And this is what will happen. Israel will cease to exist. It will be replaced by something called Palestine. In Palestine, there will be a Jewish component. There will be a Christian component, but it will be a predominantly Muslim component. That's the future of this region. And there's nothing that anybody can do to stop it. The trajectory of history is such that Israel has not only morally lost the right to exist, but they have practically lost the ability to exist over time. Because all the things that are required to keep the Zionist entity known as Israel alive and well and living are finished.
In your opinion, does Zionism care about the future of Israel? Because what they're doing right now, what they've been doing, is just against the future of Israel, any sort of brightness in the future of Israel. But the problem is, how do they see Israel and its future? Why they're doing this, in your opinion?
To really answer this question, and you know me, I'm not afraid of answering. You have to dig down into places nobody wants to go. You have to realize that Israel has always been a propaganda exercise, and not for the benefit of Israel. That Israel exists actually to empower elements that reside in other nations. That, you know, and I'm very careful not to call it a Jewish conspiracy, because then that becomes literally, by definition, anti-Semitic. It's a Zionist conspiracy. And the Zionist conspiracy is to use the symbol of Israel, whether it was the potential of Israel leading up to the creation of Israel, or the reality of Israel afterwards, as a mechanism of political and economic empowerment around the world. In the United States, we have what we call the Israeli lobby. It's the Zionist element of it. It's used by a number of people for political empowerment here in America. Everybody, you know, and I was one of them, always said, you know, well, the Israelis have bought the American Congress. No, American Zionists have bought the American Congress. And they control the political, and they use Israel as a mechanism of empowerment. How else do you take a population of such small percentages and give them the political and economic influence that they have far above the actual numbers that we're talking about? The Zionist enterprise has enabled it. It comes in a number of ways. You know, Norm Finkelstein has always talked, you know, about the Holocaust. What do you call it? The Holocaust. Basically, it's a scam. Not saying that the Holocaust didn't exist. No one's saying that. Of course it exists. It's horrible. Happened. Never again. I'm a firm believer of that. But to use the Holocaust as a mechanism of economic and political empowerment, you know, and that's part of the Zionist entity. And in doing so, what they've done is they have destroyed their own history, because they're creating enough political animus that people, by attacking them, are indirectly attacking the memory of the Holocaust. They've trivialized the Holocaust. It should have been something that causes everybody to take pause, everybody to fall on their knees, everybody to cry and say, never again can this happen to not just the Jewish people, but any people. That's what, if you truly believed in this, you would do. And yet, these people who want to turn this Holocaust memory into a justification for what they're doing in Gaza, it doesn't work that way. You've just destroyed the credibility of what you think you were trying to build here. But, you know, and so what the Zionists have done now is they've made any talk of what I've just said, they label as anti-Semitism, hate speech, etc. It's not. The Zionists are the hate speechers. The Zionists are the intolerant ones. The Zionists are the ones who are on the wrong side of history. Not the Jews, the Zionists. But we deal in a world where people, we have a lot of ignorant people in the world today. And so it's very dangerous to talk about anti-Zionism without creating the conditions for anti-Semitism, because there are people out there who are unable or unwilling to differentiate between the two. And so then it becomes an attack on Jewish institutions, the Jewish faith. And this is the absolute wrong direction to go. You can't allow the animosity one feels towards the Zionist entity known as Israel to become anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish. And at the moment, I don't think the world is capable of making that distinction. So it's a very dangerous time for the Jewish people, very dangerous time for the Jewish people, because the Zionist entity has allowed the memory of the Holocaust to be sullied, to be diminished, to be forgotten, to be used, to be abused. And once you do that, and then you allow the creation, the ability of genuine anti-Semitism to rear its ugly head. I mean, I see this in social media. I fight back all the time I can. People, Scott Ritter's an anti-free speech person. No, I just banned you because you're hating on Jews. Pick on Israel all you want. But the second I start hearing people say about Jews this, Jews that, boom, you're done, you're gone. It's not about Jews. It's about Zionism. And they're two distinct things. Even though the Zionists try to say, no, it's all one and the same, it's not. It's two distinct things. But the hatred that exists in the world today towards the Jewish people because of the Zionists is real. And it's a scary, scary time. I would not want to be a Jew anywhere in the world right now. And I would implore any nation that has a Jewish population to bend over backwards to guarantee them the right to continue to practice their faith the way they want to practice their faith. They should feel free and secure in the practice of their faith, no matter how bad the situation gets regarding the Zionist entity of Israel. Jews should never be persecuted because of that. It's a big challenge to the world today. It's a big challenge here in America. I'm seeing ironically, the people that are most in agreement with what I'm saying are Arabs, are Muslims, who are saying this isn't about Jews, but the Christians are turning this into, because you have a segment of evangelical Christian society that support Zionism, not Jews, Zionism, because it helped create the conditions for Armageddon, the rapture, the coming of the Messiah, and they think the end of the world's a great thing. So they're willing to take this down that extreme path. But you have others who bring up, the old blood libels, Jews killed Christ, and things of that nature. And you're starting to see this discussion taking place, and you're like, stop it, stop it. And then people come to me and they say, well, you're promoting it by having this dialogue that you're having about Zionism and all that. You're the problem. You're the one creating the conditions. And I'm like, no. Israel is a problem. Israel as a nation state is a problem. The world sees it as a problem. They see it as an apartheid state and a genocidal state. How do we resolve that issue? I'm not advocating for the end of Israel. I'm saying that is the inevitable outcome of the direction that Israel has taken itself down, that Benjamin Netanyahu has taken itself down. That's what's going to happen. Do I think it needs to happen? Yes. I think that you can't speak of peace in the Middle East until you speak of a one-state solution to the Palestinian problem. But that in no way should be conceived by anybody as anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish. Just the opposite. The end of this artificial entity known as the Zionist state of Israel provides the greatest security for the Jewish people and the Jewish faith in the world, because it eliminates this seed of hatred that's been sown and is growing. And again, we live in a very dangerous time. If I were a Jew, I would be scared, rightfully so.
The United States is offering a defense treaty to Saudi Arabia to just normalizing the relationship with Israel. And on the other side, they want Saudi Arabia just to distance itself from China, just not prohibiting Chinese bases in Saudi Arabia. When you look at this offer on the part of the United States, why does Saudi Arabia need a defense treaty in your opinion? Do they have any sort of enemy in that region? We know that they had some complications, some differences with Iran. And right now it doesn't seem that they have it anymore. It's not the best way possible, but they're getting along with each other right now. And is this all about the normalization of the relationship with Israel, or is it about something else? We know that Saudi Arabia recently has put a sentence in that agreement with Israel that they want to have a Palestinian state. That's why are they trying to remove this part that Saudi Arabia added to the agreement, or what's the reason behind this defense treaty?
I think you got to understand that every nation is a consequence of its own history, meaning that, we can sit here and look at things, is there a reason for Saudi Arabia to be at odds with Iran? Is there is it in Saudi Arabia's best interest to normalize with Israel? Da 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 da. And logically we would say, well, no, but then why are they doing it? Saudi Arabia, modern Saudi society, has as one of its foundational elements the agreement that was made between Roosevelt and King Saud back at the end of World War II, and that's evolved into a economic arrangement that originally was about Aramco and America there, but then the Saudis nationalized Aramco, became a Saudi money-making machine, but they needed American military support to back them up, protect them during the Cold War, protect them against regional threats, Iraq, Iran, etc. And then the role that Saudi Arabia played there, and it's not just as simple as talking about oil. We're talking about finances, the integration of all this money that Saudi Arabia made, the empowerment of the princes. We can't ignore that. Yes, there's a king. Yes, there's a crown prince. There's a whole bunch of princes out there who have a say in this too, and they have a lot of money, and that money's out there in banks, and they've been buying influence in the West. It's like anything. If you invest heavily into something, it's very hard to get out of that investment. Even when the investment starts to sour, you keep saying, well, I hope it stays on. Saudi Arabia has been investing in the West for a long, 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 long time. This transition to the East is happening because Saudi Arabia has become soured with the Western investment, but they can't just dump it overnight. That's impossible to do. And so Saudi Arabia will string the West along as necessary. I think a strategic decision has been made by Saudi Arabia. I mean, we know it has. They joined BRICS. And that's not a tactical decision. That's a strategic decision. They didn't renew the 50-year petrodollar agreement with the United States. That is a strategic decision. They're taking payments in non-dollar denominations. That's a strategic decision. But you can't, until these strategic decisions start creating, centers of gravity that are sustainable, until the economic relationships with Eurasia have evolved to the point that they can be done independent of whatever happens with the West. You can't just walk away from the West. And so when the United States, where a lot of Saudi money still is, and a lot of, politically, a lot of the princes have grown up flying to London, flying to the United States. They own property everywhere. You can't just hit the off switch on that. So when the United States says, hey, we want to sit down and talk to you about something, the Saudis have to say, yes, of course, come here, sit down, let's talk. Let's talk. Oh, yes, we think this is a grand idea, a wonderful thing. Of course, we have the caveat that there has to be a Palestinian state.